I found the receipt in her purse while she was under anesthesia. Breast augmentation, tummy tuck, Brazilian butt lift. Total cost $47,000. The exact amount I'd saved for my wedding over 6 years. The same money that mysteriously vanished from our joint account 3 weeks ago. My name is Sage, and if you think you know how this story ends, you're about to be shocked. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights in the plastic surgery clinic buzzed overhead like angry wasps. I sat in the waiting area, my hands trembling as I held the crumpled receipt that had fallen from Zara's designer handbag. The same handbag I'd watched her carry for months, wondering how she could afford such luxury on her barista salary. Now I knew. She'd been spending my future, one expensive procedure at a time. 6 years. 6 years of working double shifts at the diner, saving every tip, every overtime hour, every birthday check from our grandparents. 6 years of dreaming about walking down the aisle in my grandmother's vintage lace dress, saying vows to Marcus in the little chapel where our parents had married. 6 years of careful planning, budgeting, and sacrifice, all for this one perfect day that was supposed to happen in 8 weeks. The joint account had been Zara's idea. "We're sisters," she said, twirling her dark hair around her finger the way she always did when she wanted something. "Family should stick together. Besides, it's safer to have both our names on it. What if something happens to you?" I'd been 22 and naive enough to believe that blood meant loyalty. Now, at 28, I was learning that some people will drain you dry and smile while they do it. The receptionist called her name, Zara Rodriguez, post-op consultation. I watched through the glass partition as they wheeled my sister into the recovery room, her face peaceful in drug-induced sleep. She had no idea I was there, no idea that I'd followed her from the apartment we shared, suspicious after weeks of her strange behavior. The hushed phone calls, the mysterious appointments, the way she'd started wearing oversized sweaters to hide her changing body. I'd trusted her completely. When she'd asked to be added to my wedding savings account, claiming she wanted to help contribute, I'd signed the papers without hesitation. When she'd mentioned needing to borrow a small amount for an emergency, I'd told her to take what she needed. I never imagined that small amount would be everything. Every single dollar I'd worked for, saved for, dreamed about. The surgeon emerged from the back room, still wearing his scrubs. Dr. Richardson, according to his name tag, looked like he'd stepped out of a medical drama. Too handsome, too smooth, too comfortable talking about reshaping people's bodies for profit. He spotted me in the waiting area and approached with the practiced smile of someone who delivered news for a living. "Miss Rodriguez mentioned you'd be handling the final payment arrangements," he said, extending a manicured hand. "Zara Rodriguez's sister, correct? The procedures went beautifully. She'll be stunning once the swelling goes down. We're looking at about 6 weeks for full recovery." I stared at him, my mouth dry as cotton. "Final payment?" I managed to croak out. She paid with my wedding fund, our joint account, without telling me. Dr. Richardson's smile faltered slightly. He glanced toward the recovery room, then back at me. "The account was in both names," he said carefully. "The payment went through without any issues. Perhaps this is a family matter you should discuss privately?" Family matter. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. I'd been planning a family, creating a new one with Marcus, the man who'd waited patiently while I saved every penny, who'd proposed with his grandmother's ring because he knew how important it was for me to pay for our wedding myself. The man who was probably at home right now, addressing invitations for a wedding that could no longer happen. "How much did she still owe?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would destroy me. Dr. Richardson consulted his tablet. "The remaining balance is $18,000, due within 30 days. Miss Rodriguez assured us this wouldn't be a problem." 18,000, on top of the 47 she'd already stolen. My legs felt weak. I sank into one of the leather waiting room chairs, the receipt still clutched in my shaking hands. The math was brutal and simple. She'd taken everything and promised them more money that didn't exist. Money I didn't have. Money that would take me another 3 years to save. "I need to see her," I whispered. She's still sedated from the surgery, Dr. Richardson explained. The anesthesia won't wear off for another hour or two, but you're welcome to sit with her. He led me down a pristine hallway lined with before and after photos. Smiling faces, transformed bodies, testimonials about new confidence and self-love. I wondered how many of these transformations had been paid for with stolen dreams. How many sisters, parents, or friends had unknowingly funded someone else's vanity. The recovery room was small and sterile, dominated by the medical bed where Zara lay sleeping. Even unconscious, even with bandages and bruising, she looked satisfied, content in a way I'd never seen before. Her lips curved in the faintest smile, as if she was dreaming about her new body, her new life, built on the ruins of mine. I pulled a chair close to her bedside and waited. The machines beeped steadily, monitoring her vital signs while my own heart raced with fury and disbelief. This was my sister, the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who'd cried when I left for college, who'd been my maid of honor at my engagement party just 6 months ago. The same person who'd stood up that night and given a speech about how lucky Marcus was to marry someone so generous and trusting. Generous and trusting. She'd known exactly what she was doing. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Hey babe, just picked up the flowers for the tasting tomorrow. Can't wait to see you. Love you." The wedding tasting. I'd completely forgotten. Tomorrow we were supposed to sample cakes and finalize the catering for our reception. The reception that was supposed to happen in 8 weeks, paid for with money that was now permanently attached to my sister's surgically enhanced body. I typed back quickly. "Something's come up. Can we reschedule? I'll explain later." "Everything okay?" He responded immediately. "You sound stressed." Everything was not okay. Everything was the opposite of okay. But I couldn't tell him that over text. Couldn't explain that our wedding was canceled because my sister had spent our future on Brazilian butt lifts and breast implants. Couldn't admit that I'd been stupid enough to trust family with something so precious. "I'll call you tonight," I typed back, then turned off my phone. Zara's eyes fluttered open around 4 in the afternoon. She blinked slowly, trying to focus, her hand moving instinctively to check the bandages across her chest. When she saw me sitting beside her bed, her expression shifted from confusion to something that might have been guilt. Might have been. With Zara, it was always hard to tell. "Sage?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube. "What are you doing here?" I held up the receipt, smoothing out the wrinkles I'd created with my desperate grip. "This fell out of your purse," I said quietly. $47,000 for plastic surgery from our joint account. She tried to sit up, winced, and settled back against the pillows. Her eyes darted around the room as if looking for an escape route. "I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. "You spent my wedding fund," I said, each word carefully measured. 6 years of savings. Every penny I had. Without asking, without telling me. You stole my wedding, Zara. "I didn't steal anything," she protested, her voice gaining strength. "It's a joint account. Both our names are on it. I have every legal right to access that money." Legal right, not moral right, not sister right, not human decency right. Legal right. "You knew what that money was for," I said. "You helped me save it. You celebrated with me every time I hit a new milestone. You were supposed to be my maid of honor." "I still can be," she said quickly. "Once I recover, once I'm healed, I'll look amazing in photos. This is good for both of us, Sage. You'll thank me later." Thank her later. For destroying my wedding? For stealing my dreams? For lying to my face for months while she planned this elaborate betrayal? The audacity was breathtaking. "How am I supposed to pay for my wedding now?" I asked. "It's in 8 weeks. Everything's been booked, deposits made, invitations sent. Marcus and I have been planning this for 2 years." Zara's expression hardened. "That's your problem," she said. "I needed this surgery. You don't understand what it's like to hate your body every single day, to feel ugly and worthless and invisible. This money changed my life." "And ended mine?" I whispered. "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. "You can have another wedding later. Save up again. Marcus will wait if he really loves you." But I couldn't wait anymore. I'm 31 years old, Sage. I needed to do this now, while I still have time to enjoy it. Time to enjoy it, while I spent another 6 years working double shifts, saving pennies, watching other people get married and start families, while I tried to rebuild what she'd destroyed. While Marcus wondered why our wedding had suddenly been canceled, why I couldn't afford the life we'd planned together. Dr. Richardson knocked on the doorframe and entered with a clipboard. "How are we feeling, Miss Rodriguez? Ready to discuss your recovery timeline and remaining payment schedule?" Zara looked at me expectantly, as if I was supposed to handle this conversation, as if I was supposed to figure out how to pay for the surgery she'd already had, using money she'd already stolen from me. "Actually," I said, standing up slowly, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not responsible for any remaining payments. Zara will need to work that out herself." Zara's eyes widened in panic. "Sage, you can't just leave me here. We're family. We stick together, remember?" "Family," I repeated. "Like when you stuck by me while spending my wedding fund? Like when you stuck together with me while lying to my face for months?" Dr. Richardson cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps I should give you ladies some privacy to work this out. But I do need to remind you that payment arrangements were confirmed prior to surgery. We'll need resolution on this within 30 days. "Of course," Zara said quickly. "My sister will handle everything, won't you, Sage?" I looked down at her, lying in that hospital bed, bandaged and swollen, but still beautiful in the way she'd always been beautiful. Still expecting the world to revolve around her needs, her wants, her timeline. Still expecting me to clean up her messes, pay her bills, sacrifice my happiness for her comfort. "No," I said simply. "I won't." The word hung in the air between us like a bridge burning. I'd never said no to Zara before, never refused her anything she really wanted. I'd given her money for rent when she was short, covered her car payments when she was between jobs, let her live in my apartment rent-free for 2 years while she figured out her life. I'd been the responsible one, the reliable one, the sister who always came through. But this was different. This wasn't helping her through a rough patch or covering an unexpected expense. This was theft. This was betrayal. This was the systematic destruction of everything I'd worked for, planned for, dreamed about. I walked toward the door, my legs steadier now that I'd made my decision. Zara called after me, her voice rising to a pitch I recognized from childhood tantrums. "Sage, come back here. You can't just abandon me. I'm your sister. I need you." I paused in the doorway and looked back at her one last time. "You needed my money," I said. "You never needed me." The elevator ride to the ground floor felt like falling through space. My phone had 17 missed calls from Marcus, 12 text messages, and a voicemail from my mother asking why Zara wasn't answering her phone. The normal world was continuing around me, people living their normal lives, while mine collapsed in slow motion. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what came next. I couldn't go home. Zara and I shared an apartment, and she'd be discharged tomorrow morning with nowhere to go but back there. I couldn't face Marcus yet. Couldn't explain that our wedding was canceled because I'd been stupid enough to trust family. Couldn't bear to see the disappointment in his eyes when he realized I'd let this happen. Instead, I drove to the one place that had always felt safe. The diner where I'd worked for 6 years, where I'd served coffee and eggs and dreams of something better. Where my boss, Rita, had become more like a mother than an employer, and where the other waitresses knew every detail of my wedding plans because I'd talked about nothing else for months. Rita took one look at my face and poured me a cup of coffee without asking. The dinner rush hadn't started yet, so she sat across from me in a corner booth and waited for me to find my voice. "She stole it," I whispered finally. "All of it. The whole wedding fund." Rita's expression hardened. She was 68 years old, had raised 4 kids alone, and had seen every kind of human betrayal the world had to offer. "Who?" she asked, though I think she already knew. "Zara, my sister. She spent $47,000 on plastic surgery from our joint account without telling me." Rita was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then she reached across the table and took my hand in both of hers. Her fingers were warm and steady, calloused from 40 years of waitressing, but gentle in a way my own sisters had never been. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "The wedding's in 8 weeks. Everything's been paid for except the final payments, and those are due next month. I have maybe 3,000 in my personal checking account. It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. Can you get a loan? I shook my head. I don't have enough income to qualify for that kind of money, and even if I could, going into debt for a wedding seems crazy when I'm still trying to save for a house down payment. Rita nodded thoughtfully. What about Marcus? Could his family help? The thought made me feel sick. Marcus came from money, the kind of old East Coast family that had been wealthy for generations. They'd offered to pay for our wedding multiple times, but I'd insisted on doing it myself. It had been important to me to contribute equally to our marriage, to prove that I wasn't marrying him for financial security. Now I'd have to admit that I couldn't even protect my own money from my own sister. I can't, I said. I can't ask them to bail me out because my sister is a thief. Rita was quiet again, and I could see her mind working. She'd been running this diner for 30 years, had seen employees come and go, had watched some of us struggle and some of us thrive. She'd been the one to encourage me to go to college, had adjusted my schedule around my classes, had celebrated with me when I graduated with my business degree. There might be another way, she said slowly, but you're not going to like it. At this point, I'm open to suggestions. Sue her. Take her to court. Prove that she stole your money and get a judgment against her. Then you can garnish her wages, put a lien on her assets, make her life as difficult as she's made yours. The idea had never occurred to me. Sue my own sister? Take family business to court? Make it public? Turn our private betrayal into legal proceedings? It felt wrong somehow, like crossing a line I'd never be able to uncross. I don't know if I can do that, I said. She's still my sister. Rita's expression softened, but her voice remained firm. Honey, she stopped being your sister the moment she stole your wedding fund. Real sisters don't do this to each other. Real sisters protect each other's dreams, not destroy them. I thought about Zara lying in that hospital bed, bandaged and swollen, but satisfied. Thought about the smile on her face as she slept, dreaming of her new body built with my stolen money. Thought about the way she'd looked at me when I refused to pay her remaining surgical bills, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Maybe Rita was right. Maybe blood didn't automatically make someone family. Maybe family was something you earned through loyalty and love and sacrifice, not something you were born with. But even as I considered the possibility of legal action, part of me hoped there might be another way. Some chance for reconciliation, some explanation that would make sense of this betrayal, some path forward that wouldn't destroy what was left of our relationship forever. I was about to learn that some bridges are meant to be burned. My phone rang as I sat there contemplating my options. Marcus's name flashed on the screen, and I knew I couldn't avoid him any longer. I stepped outside the diner and answered on the fourth ring. Sage, thank God, he said, relief evident in his voice. I've been trying to reach you all day. What's going on? You sounded so strange in your text. I leaned against the brick wall of the diner, watching traffic pass on the street where I'd spent so many years serving other people's dreams. How do you tell the man you love that your sister has destroyed your future together? How do you explain that the wedding you've been planning for 2 years, the life you've been building toward, has been stolen by someone who was supposed to be standing beside you at the altar? Zara took the money, I said simply. All of it. The entire wedding fund. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, quietly, what do you mean she took it? She had plastic surgery today, $47,000 worth, from our joint account. She spent our entire wedding budget on breast implants and liposuction and God knows what else. Marcus was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful and controlled in a way that scared me. Okay, he said. Okay, we can figure this out. How much do we? The word gave me the first glimmer of hope I'd felt all day. Not you, not your problem, but we. Partnership. Team effort, the the kind of unity I'd always imagined marriage would bring. But then reality crashed back in. It's not just the money she already spent, I explained. She owes the surgeon another $18,000, and we still need about $25,000 for the final wedding payments. $43,000 total, and that's if we don't want to upgrade anything or handle any unexpected costs. Marcus was quiet again. I could hear him breathing, could picture him running his hand through his dark hair the way he always did when he was thinking. Finally, he spoke. My parents offered to help with the wedding, he said, multiple times. Maybe this is the right time to accept their offer. The suggestion hit me like a physical blow. His parents? The Ashford family, with their old money and their historic family home, and their polite but obvious disapproval of their son's choice to marry a diner waitress. They'd been gracious about our engagement, had welcomed me into their family with the kind of reserved warmth that felt more like duty than affection. But they had never hidden their belief that Marcus could do better. I can't, I whispered. I can't start our marriage by proving that I can't even manage my own finances, that I'm the kind of person who gets taken advantage of by her own family. Sage, Marcus said gently, you didn't do anything wrong here. Zara stole from you. That's not your fault. But I let it happen, I argued. I trusted her with access to my money. I was naive and stupid, and now I'm exactly what your parents always thought I was, someone who needs to be rescued. That's not what they think, Marcus protested, but his voice lacked conviction. We both knew the truth. His mother had made subtle comments about my background, my job, my family's working-class roots. His father had questioned whether I truly understood what I was getting into, marrying into their social circle. They'd been kind but condescending, helpful but judgmental. Now I'd have to go to them with my hand out, proving every doubt they'd ever had about my worthiness to be their daughter-in-law. There has to be another way, I said. Give me some time to figure this out. The wedding is in 8 weeks, Marcus reminded me. We need to make final payments next month. Time is not exactly on our side here. I know, I said, I know. But please, just give me a few days to see what options I have. Maybe I can work something out with Zara. Maybe she has assets I don't know about. Even as I said it, I knew it was unlikely. Zara had never been good with money, had never saved for the future, had always lived paycheck to paycheck, despite my repeated attempts to help her budget. If she'd had $18,000 lying around, she wouldn't have needed to steal my wedding fund in the first place. Okay, Marcus said finally. A few days. But Sage, I need you to know something. I don't care if we get married in a courthouse or a cathedral. I don't care if we have a reception for 300 people or just the two of us. What matters is that we're together. Everything else is just details.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
His words were meant to be comforting, but they made me feel worse. He didn't understand what this wedding meant to me. Didn't understand that it represented 6 years of sacrifice and planning and dreaming. Didn't understand that having the wedding I'd always imagined was about more than just one day. It was about proving to myself and everyone else that I could achieve something beautiful through hard work and determination. I love you, I told him, because it was true, and because I needed him to know it. I'll figure this out. After I hung up, I sat in my car outside the diner and cried for the first time since discovering Zara's betrayal. Not pretty tears, but the ugly, gut-wrenching sobs of someone whose world has just collapsed. I cried for my lost wedding, for my stolen dreams, for the sister I thought I knew who had turned out to be a stranger capable of unthinkable cruelty. But mostly, I cried because I knew that whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. The trust was broken, the family was shattered, and the future I'd planned so carefully was gone forever. When I finally stopped crying, something had changed inside me. The grief was still there, but it was accompanied by something harder and more dangerous: anger. Not the hot, explosive kind that burns out quickly, but the cold, steady kind that sustains itself and grows stronger over time. Zara had made a choice when she stole my money. Now, it was time for me to make some choices of my own. I drove home as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that reminded me of the sunset wedding photos I'd imagined taking with Marcus. The apartment I shared with Zara felt different now, contaminated by her betrayal. Every piece of furniture we'd bought together, every shared memory contained within these walls, was tainted by what she'd done. Her bedroom door was closed, but I could hear her moving around inside, probably packing a bag for her recovery. She'd be coming home from the surgery center tomorrow morning, expecting me to take care of her while she healed from procedures paid for with my stolen money. Instead of confronting her immediately, I went to my own room and started making a list. Assets, debts, options, possibilities. I was a business major, trained to analyze problems and find solutions. This was just another problem to solve, another challenge to overcome. But as I wrote down the harsh mathematics of my situation, I realized that conventional solutions wouldn't be enough. I needed something more creative, more decisive, more permanent than just asking Zara to pay me back or begging Marcus's parents for help. I needed to think like Zara for a moment. Selfish, calculating, willing to do whatever it took to get what I wanted. The thought disgusted me, but maybe it was time to fight fire with fire. I opened my laptop and started researching fraud laws, civil remedies, small claims court procedures, asset recovery, garnishment options. The legal system offered multiple paths for victims of theft, but they all required time, money, and evidence. Time I didn't have, money I didn't possess, and evidence that might be difficult to prove. But there was something else I could do, something that would hit Zara where it hurt most: her reputation, her image, the carefully crafted social media presence that she'd built around her lifestyle and her looks. I had screenshots of our joint bank account showing the withdrawals. I had the receipt from the plastic surgery clinic. I had text messages where she'd lied to me about needing small amounts of money for emergencies. I had a paper trail that told the whole story of her systematic theft. What I also had was a decent following on my own social media accounts. Friends from college, coworkers from the diner, family members, acquaintances from around town. People who knew about my upcoming wedding, who'd been following my planning process, who'd been genuinely excited for my bid day. People who deserved to know why that wedding was suddenly canceled. I stared at the blank post screen for a long time, cursor blinking in the text box like a heartbeat. Once I published this story, there would be no taking it back. Our family drama would become public knowledge. Zara's reputation would be destroyed, her career potentially damaged, her relationships strained or broken. But she'd chosen this path when she decided my wedding fund was more important than my future. She'd chosen this path when she lied to me for months while planning her theft. She'd chosen this path when she spent my money on vanity procedures and then expected me to cover her remaining costs. I started typing, and once the words began flowing, they poured out like water through a broken dam. The whole story, from the joint account to the discovery at the surgery center to her casual expectation that I would clean up her mess. I included screenshots, receipts, evidence of every lie she'd told. But I also included something else, a promise, a commitment to justice that went beyond just exposing her theft. The post ended with these words: "Some people think family means you have to accept being walked on, lied to, and stolen from. I'm here to prove them wrong. Zara chose to destroy my wedding to pay for her plastic surgery. Now, I'm choosing to show everyone exactly what kind of person she really is. And this is just the beginning." I hit publish at 11:47 p.m., then turned off my phone and tried to sleep. By morning, everything had changed. My phone had 247 notifications when I finally turned it back on at 7 in the morning. Comments, shares, direct messages, tags, reactions, pouring in faster than I could process them. The post had gone viral overnight, shared by friends who shared it with their friends, who shared it with complete strangers who were outraged on my behalf. The comments ranged from supportive to savage. Girl, sue her into oblivion. Family or not, theft is theft. I can't believe she had the audacity to expect you to pay for her remaining surgeries. But mixed in with the support were the defenders, mostly people who didn't know the full story or who believed that family loyalty meant accepting any behavior, no matter how destructive. "There are two sides to every story," one comment read.
maybe Zara was desperate and had no other choice. Another person wrote, putting family business on social media like this is trashy. Handle this privately. But the overwhelming response was anger directed at Zara, not me. People were sharing the post with captions like, "This is why you never give family access to your money," and "The audacity of some people knows no bounds." Screenshots were being posted to forums and community groups. The story was spreading beyond my immediate circle, into the wider world of internet justice. At 7:15, my phone rang. My mother's contact photo filled the screen, and I knew the conversation was going to be brutal. Mom had always favored Zara, had always made excuses for her behavior, had always expected me to be the responsible one who cleaned up her messes. "Sage Elizabeth Martinez," she said, the moment I answered, using my full name in the tone she'd reserved for serious childhood infractions. "What have you done?" "Good morning to you too, Mom." "Don't get smart with me. Your post is all over Facebook. Mrs. Henderson from down the street just called to ask if it's true that Zara stole your wedding money. The whole neighborhood is talking about our family business." Our family business. Not Zara's theft, not my destroyed wedding, but the embarrassment of having our problems exposed to public scrutiny. "Did you call to ask if the story is true?" I asked. "Because it is, every word of it." Mom was quiet for a moment. "Zara says you're exaggerating. She says it was a misunderstanding about the joint account and that you're being vindictive because she needed medical procedures." Medical procedures? Breast augmentation and Brazilian butt lifts were now medical procedures in Zara's version of events. "Mom, she spent $47,000 of my wedding money on plastic surgery without telling me. She cleaned out the entire account. How is that a misunderstanding?" "Maybe if you'd been a better communicator with your sister, this could have been avoided," Mom said, and I felt the familiar weight of being blamed for Zara's actions. "Family is supposed to stick together, Sage. You don't air your dirty laundry on the internet for everyone to see." "And family is supposed to not steal from each other," I replied, "but apparently we have different definitions of what family means." "Take the post down," Mom demanded, "right now. Delete it and apologize to your sister. She's recovering from surgery and doesn't need this stress." The nerve of it took my breath away. Zara was recovering from surgery paid for with my stolen money, and I was supposed to apologize for being upset about it? "No," I said. "No, Mom, I'm not taking it down and I'm not apologizing. Zara made her choice when she decided my wedding fund was hers to spend. Now she gets to live with the consequences." I hung up before she could respond and immediately blocked her number. I couldn't handle being made to feel guilty for refusing to enable Zara's theft any longer.
But the family pressure was just beginning. Over the next hour, I received calls from my Aunt Rosa, my Uncle Miguel, and my cousin Carmen, all delivering variations of the same message. Family loyalty meant protecting Zara's reputation, even if she'd destroyed mine first. I was being selfish for not understanding her desperate need for surgery. I was being cruel for exposing her publicly instead of handling things privately. None of them asked how I was doing. None of them expressed sympathy for my canceled wedding or my years of stolen savings. None of them seemed to think Zara had done anything wrong beyond getting caught. By 9 a.m., I had 17 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Reporters, I realized, local news stations and online publications who'd picked up the story from social media. The post had spread far enough to attract professional attention, and they wanted interviews, statements, additional details about the family drama that was apparently newsworthy enough to cover. I ignored them all and drove to the diner for my morning shift. Rita took one look at my face and immediately ushered me into her office behind the kitchen. "Honey, you look like you've been through a war," she said, closing the door behind us. "My family is choosing sides," I said, "and they're not choosing mine." Rita nodded grimly. "I saw your post last night. Shared it myself, if I'm being honest. My daughter shared it too, and her daughter. Things got a life of its own now. My mom wants me to take it down and apologize to Zara for embarrassing her." Of course she does. That's what enablers do. They protect the people causing the damage and blame the people pointing it out. Rita sat down heavily in her desk chair. But here's the thing, Sage. You can't put that genie back in the bottle now. The story's out there, it's spreading, and taking down your original post won't stop it. She was right. Screenshots had been taken, reposts had been made. The story had been picked up by enough people that it would continue circulating with or without my involvement. I'd crossed the Rubicon, and there was no going back. Maybe that's good, I said. Maybe it's time for everyone to know who Zara really is. Rita studied my face carefully. You're sure about that? Because once you go down this road, there's no repairing that relationship. Your sister, your family, they're going to see you as the enemy from now on. They already do, I realized. The moment they chose to defend her theft instead of supporting my loss, they made me the enemy. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Saw your post. We need to talk. Can you come over tonight? I stared at the message, trying to read between the lines. Was he angry that I'd made our private business public? Disappointed that I'd chosen confrontation over quiet resolution? Worried about how this would affect his family's reputation when they inevitably learned that their future daughter-in-law came from the kind of family that aired their business on social media? Everything okay? Rita asked, noticing my expression. Marcus wants to talk. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Probably both, Rita said honestly. But if he's the right man for you, he'll understand why you did what you did. And if he doesn't, she shrugged, then you're better off finding out now. I worked my shift in a haze, serving coffee and taking orders while my phone continued buzzing with notifications. The lunch crowd was buzzing too, though most customers were too polite to mention that they'd seen my social media drama. A few regulars offered quiet words of support, and Mrs. Patterson, who'd been coming to the diner for 15 years, squeezed my hand when I brought her check. That sister of yours always did seem like trouble, she whispered. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. At 3 o'clock, a woman I'd never seen before approached my section. She was professionally dressed, carrying a leather portfolio, and had the confident bearing of someone who dealt with difficult situations for a living. Sage Martinez? She asked. My name is Andrea Chen. I'm an attorney specializing in family financial disputes. I wondered if I might have a word with you. My heart raced. A lawyer. Either someone was suing me for the social media post, or this was about something else entirely. I'm working, I said carefully. I understand, but I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. I've been following your story online, and I believe I can help you recover your stolen wedding fund. Rita appeared at my elbow as if summoned by radar. Everything okay here? This is Andrea Chen, I said. She's a lawyer who says she can help me get my money back. Rita's expression shifted to protective skepticism. And what's this going to cost? Andrea smiled. Nothing upfront. I work on contingency for cases like this. I only get paid if we successfully recover funds from my client. What kind of success rate do you have with family theft cases? Rita asked. 87%, Andrea replied without hesitation. And given the evidence I've seen in Sage's social media post, this would be one of the stronger cases I've handled. I looked around the diner. The lunch crowd was thinning out, and my replacement for the evening shift wouldn't arrive for 2 hours. But this felt important, potentially life-changing. Give me 5 minutes to get someone to cover my tables, I said. Rita nodded toward her office. You can talk in there. I'll handle your section. Andrea spread documents across Rita's desk with practiced efficiency. Based on what you've shared publicly, you have several legal options: civil theft, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The joint account complicates things slightly, but the fact that the money was designated for a specific purpose and that she concealed her withdrawals from you creates liability. How long would something like this take? I asked. Depends on whether she fights it or settles quickly. If she has assets we can attach, we might see resolution in 60 to 90 days. If she's judgment-proof, it could take longer. What do you mean, judgment-proof? Andrea's expression grew more serious. If she doesn't have money or assets to satisfy a judgment, winning in court becomes symbolic rather than practical. We can garnish wages, but if she's unemployed or underemployed, recovery becomes more challenging. I thought about Zara's lifestyle. The designer handbags, the expensive apartment in the trendy part of town, the new car she'd bought 6 months ago.
She'd always lived beyond her means, but I'd assumed she'd found better paying work or maybe received help from a boyfriend. Now I wondered if she'd been planning this stuff for months, living off my wedding fund while pretending her improved circumstances came from legitimate sources. There's something else, Andrea continued. The plastic surgery itself could be considered an asset. If the procedures were purely cosmetic and not medically necessary, a court might order her to take out loans against her future earning potential to pay you back. We could also put liens against any property she owns. She doesn't own property, I said. She rents an apartment. Any valuable possessions? Jewelry, electronics, vehicles? I thought about her car, her designer clothes, the expensive skincare products that filled her bathroom. Everything she owned had probably been purchased with money that should have been mine. Maybe, I said, but it feels weird going after her possessions. Andrea leaned back in her chair.
Sage, she stole nearly $50,000 from you. She destroyed your wedding plans and damaged your relationship with your fiancé's family. Feeling weird about reclaiming your stolen money is exactly the kind of thinking that lets people like your sister get away with this behavior. She was right, but it still felt like crossing a line. Taking legal action against family, even family who'd betrayed me, went against everything I'd been taught about loyalty and forgiveness. But then I thought about Marcus's parents, about the conversation we'd inevitably have to have about their financial help, about starting my marriage as a charity case, dependent on their generosity because I'd been too trusting with my own sister, about the years it would take me to save up for another wedding if Marcus was even willing to wait that long. What do I need to do? I asked. Andrea smiled and pulled out a contract. Sign this retainer agreement and we'll file papers by the end of the week. I'll also send a demand letter to your sister, giving her the opportunity to settle before we go to court. Sometimes, the threat of legal action is enough to motivate cooperation. I read through the contract carefully, my business degree training kicking in. The terms were reasonable, the contingency fee standard for this type of case. If Andrea recovered my money, she'd earn her payment. If she didn't, I'd owe nothing beyond filing fees and court costs. One more thing, Andrea said as I signed the documents. Given the public nature of your story, we might be able to use the attention to our advantage. Media pressure can be very effective in family dispute cases, but that would mean more publicity, more interviews, more exposure. The thought made me uncomfortable. I'd posted on social media in a moment of anger and pain, but the idea of turning my family drama into a public campaign felt different, more calculated, more deliberate. Let me think about it, I said. Of course. But don't wait too long. Public interest in stories like this tends to be short-lived. If we're going to leverage the attention, we need to do it while people are still paying attention. I left the diner that afternoon with a lawyer, a plan, and a growing sense that I was changing into someone I didn't entirely recognize. The old Sage would have suffered in silence, would have found a way to blame herself for Zara's theft, would have quietly asked Marcus's parents for help, and spent the rest of her life feeling grateful and guilty. This new version of myself was apparently willing to fight publicly, to hire attorneys, to pursue justice even if it meant destroying family relationships permanently. I wasn't sure if I liked this new person, but I was beginning to respect her. Marcus lived in a converted loft downtown, an artfully industrial space with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. His family had money, but he'd chosen to live modestly, working as a nonprofit director instead of joining his father's investment firm. It was one of the things I'd always loved about him, his commitment to meaningful work over financial gain. But as I climbed the stairs to his apartment that evening, I wondered if his principles would extend to supporting a fiancé who'd chosen public warfare over private resolution. He opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a hug that felt both comforting and cautious. "How are you holding up?" he asked, leading me to the couch where his laptop sat open, my viral post displayed on the screen. "I've been better," I admitted. "My family thinks I should apologize to Zara and take down the post. I hired a lawyer instead." Marcus's eyebrows rose. A lawyer? I told him about Andrea Chen, about the legal options for recovering my stolen money, about the possibility of garnishing Zara's wages or putting liens on her assets. As I spoke, I watched his face for signs of approval or disapproval, but his expression remained carefully neutral. "What do you think?" I asked when I'd finished explaining.
Marcus was quiet for a long moment, staring at the laptop screen where hundreds of comments continued to accumulate under my post. I think, he said finally, that you're absolutely right to pursue every legal option available to you. What Zara did was theft, plain and simple, and she should face consequences. Relief flooded through me. Really? Really? But Sage, I'm worried about you. This whole situation, the public attention, the family conflict, it's changing you, and I'm not sure all of those changes are positive. The relief curdled into defensiveness. What do you mean? Marcus gestured toward the laptop. This post, the way you're talking about going after Zara's possessions, the media attention you're considering, it feels like you're turning into someone focused on revenge rather than justice. There's a difference? I think so. Justice is about making yourself whole again, recovering what was stolen, ensuring this doesn't happen to other people. Revenge is about causing maximum damage to the person who hurt you. I considered this distinction. And which one do you think I'm pursuing? Honestly, I'm not sure you know the difference right now. And I get it, I really do. You're angry and hurt, and you have every right to be. But I don't want to see you become someone you'll regret being later. His words stung because they contained enough truth to be uncomfortable. I was angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life, and that anger was driving decisions I might not have made in calmer circumstances. So what are you saying? I asked. That I should just let her get away with it? No, absolutely not. Pursue the legal case, get your money back, protect yourself financially. But maybe consider whether the public campaign is really about justice or about humiliating her. I thought about the comments under my post, about the strangers who were sharing Zara's photo with captions about greed and betrayal, about the way her name was becoming synonymous with sister-stealing wedding funds in certain corners of the internet. Maybe she deserves to be humiliated, I said. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But do you deserve to become the kind of person who humiliates people, even people who've wronged you? The question hung between us like a challenge. I'd always thought of myself as someone who took the high road, who treated people with kindness even when they didn't deserve it. But Zara's betrayal had revealed reserves of coldness and calculation I hadn't known I possessed. I don't know who I am anymore, I admitted. Marcus moved closer on the couch, taking my hands in his. You're someone who's been deeply hurt by someone you trusted. You're someone who's fighting to protect her future and her dreams. Those are good things, Sage. Just don't lose yourself in the fight. We talked until midnight, working through the practical implications of my legal action, discussing strategies for dealing with family pressure, planning for various outcomes. Marcus offered again to ask his parents for financial help, but I still couldn't bring myself to charity that would make me dependent on their generosity from the start of our marriage. There's something else, I said as I was preparing to leave. Andrea thinks we could use the media attention to pressure Zara into settling quickly. More interviews, more publicity, more public pressure. Marcus's expression grew troubled. How do you feel about that? Conflicted, I said honestly. Part of me wants her to face maximum consequences for what she did. But part of me worries about what it will do to me, becoming someone who destroys people publicly. There's a difference? I think so. Justice is about making yourself whole again, recovering what was stolen, ensuring this doesn't happen to other people. Revenge is about causing maximum damage to the person who hurt you. I considered this distinction. And which one do you think I'm pursuing? Honestly, I'm not sure you know the difference right now. And I get it, I really do. You're angry and hurt, and you have every right to be. But I don't want to see you become someone you'll regret being later. His words stung because they contained enough truth to be uncomfortable. I was angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life, and that anger was driving decisions I might not have made in calmer circumstances. So what are you saying? I asked. That I should just let her get away with it? No, absolutely not. Pursue the legal case, get your money back, protect yourself financially, but maybe consider whether the public campaign is really about justice or about humiliating her. I thought about the comments under my post, about the strangers who were sharing Zara's photo with captions about greed and betrayal, about the way her name was becoming synonymous with sister-stealing wedding funds in certain corners of the internet. Maybe she deserves to be humiliated, I said. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But do you deserve to become the kind of person who humiliates people, even people who've wronged you? The question hung between us like a challenge. I'd always thought of myself as someone who took the high road, who treated people with kindness even when they didn't deserve it. But Zara's betrayal had revealed reserves of coldness and calculation I hadn't known I possessed. I don't know who I am anymore, I admitted. Marcus moved closer on the couch, taking my hands in his. You're someone who's been deeply hurt by someone you trusted. You're someone who's fighting to protect her future and her dreams. Those are good things, Sage. Just don't lose yourself in the fight. We talked until midnight, working through the practical implications of my legal action, discussing strategies for dealing with family pressure, planning for various outcomes. Marcus offered again to ask his parents for financial help, but I still couldn't bring myself to charity that would make me dependent on their generosity from the start of our marriage. There's something else, I said as I was preparing to leave. Andrea thinks we could use the media attention to pressure Zara into settling quickly. More interviews, more publicity, more public pressure. Marcus's expression grew troubled. How do you feel about that? Conflicted, I said honestly. Part of me wants her to face maximum consequences for what she did, but part of me worries about what it will do to me, becoming someone who destroys people publicly. There's a difference? I think so. Justice is about making yourself whole again, recovering what was stolen, ensuring this doesn't happen to other people. Revenge is about causing maximum damage to the person who hurt you. I considered this distinction. And which one do you think I'm pursuing? Honestly, I'm not sure you know the difference right now. And I get it, I really do. You're angry and hurt, and you have every right to be. But I don't want to see you become someone you'll regret being later. His words stung because they contained enough truth to be uncomfortable. I was angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. And that anger was driving decisions I might not have made in calmer circumstances. So what are you saying? I asked. That I should just let her get away with it? No, absolutely not. Pursue the legal case, get your money back, protect yourself financially, but maybe consider whether
Other victims who might benefit from seeing someone fight back publicly. Maybe this wasn't just about my stolen wedding fund anymore. Maybe it was about something larger, more important, more lasting than just my personal grievances against Zara. The apartment felt different when I walked in, contaminated by Zara's betrayal, but also charged with possibility. She was still at the surgery center, wouldn't be discharged until tomorrow morning, which meant I had one night of peace to plan my next moves. I sat at my kitchen table with Andrea's contract, Janet Walsh's business card, and my laptop open to the dozens of messages from people sharing their own stories of family financial abuse. Sisters who'd stolen inheritances, brothers who'd emptied joint accounts, parents who'd used their children's college funds for vacations and gambling debts. Each story reinforced the same truth. This happened all the time, and victims usually suffered in silence because family loyalty was supposed to override personal financial security. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if one person's willingness to fight publicly could change the conversation, could make it socially unacceptable to steal from family members, could create consequences that actually deterred this behavior? I opened a new document and started typing. Not another social media post, but a detailed account of everything that had happened. The months of lies, the systematic theft, the family's response, the legal options I was pursuing. A comprehensive record that could be shared with journalists, posted on advocacy websites, turned into a case study for others dealing with similar situations. As I wrote, I felt something shifting inside me. The anger was still there, but it was being joined by something more purposeful. If Zara's theft of my wedding fund could prevent other people from experiencing similar betrayals, then maybe some good could come from this destruction. Maybe justice wasn't just about making myself whole again. Maybe it was about breaking the cycle of family financial abuse that relied on victims staying quiet to protect their abusers' reputations. By the time I finished writing, it was 3 a.m, and I had 12 pages of documentation that told the complete story. I saved the file with tomorrow's date and the title, When Family Becomes the Enemy, a case study in financial abuse. Tomorrow, Zara would come home from her surgery, paid for with my stolen money, expecting me to take care of her during her recovery. Instead, she'd find legal papers, media attention, and a sister who discovered that some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Tomorrow, everything would change again. Zara came home at 10:30 in the morning, moving slowly and wincing with each step. I watched from my bedroom window as she emerged from an Uber, clutching a small overnight bag and wearing oversized sunglasses to hide the bruising around her eyes from the facial procedures I hadn't even known she'd gotten. She looked fragile and vulnerable, nothing like the confident woman who'd stolen my future. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old protective instinct I'd always had toward my younger sister. She was hurt, she was healing, she needed help. But then I remembered the receipt in my hands, the empty bank account, the wedding that would never happen, and the flicker died. I waited until she was inside the apartment before emerging from my room. She was sitting on the couch, carefully positioned with pillows behind her back, looking up at me with an expression that might have been hope or calculation. "Sage," she said softly, "thank God you're here. I feel terrible." "I'm sure you do," I thought, but what I said was, "We need to talk." She nodded eagerly. "Yes, absolutely. I know you're upset about the money, but I can explain everything. The surgery was necessary for my mental health. I've been so depressed about my body, so self-conscious. This was about survival, not vanity." Mental health, survival. She was already spinning the narrative, turning her theft into a medical necessity that I should sympathize with rather than prosecute. "I hired a lawyer," I said without preamble. The color drained from Zara's face, making the bruising around her eyes more pronounced. "What do you mean you hired a lawyer?" I placed Andrea Chen's business card on the coffee table between us. "I mean, I'm suing you for theft. $47,000 plus the $18,000 you still owe the surgeon, plus damages for the canceled wedding, the lost deposits, the emotional distress." Zara stared at the business card as if it might burst into flames. "You can't be serious. I'm your sister." "You were my sister when you stole my wedding fund, too. That didn't stop you." "Sage, please, I made a mistake, okay? I should have talked to you first, but I can pay you back. I'll get a second job, I'll work nights, I'll do whatever it takes." "With what money? You owe the plastic surgeon $18,000. Your rent is $1,500 a month. You make maybe $2,000 at the coffee shop. The math doesn't work, Zara." She started crying then, careful tears that didn't disturb her healing incisions. "So what? You're just going to destroy me, ruin my life because I made one mistake?" "One mistake?" The words came out sharper than I'd intended. "You spent months planning this. You lied to me repeatedly about needing small amounts for emergencies. You knew exactly what that money was for, and you spent it anyway. That's not a mistake, that's systematic theft." "The account had both our names on it," she protested. "Legally, I had every right to use that money." "Legally, maybe. Morally? That's a different question entirely." Zara struggled to her feet, her movements careful and pained. "I need some water, and my pain medication." I watched her shuffle to the kitchen, noting how she moved like someone genuinely hurting. The surgeries had been real, the recovery was real, the physical transformation she'd purchased with my money was permanent. There was no undoing what she'd done, no returning the money to its original form. But there were other forms of justice. My phone rang while Zara was in the kitchen. Janet Walsh from Channel 7 News. "Ms. Martinez, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Could we set up an interview for this afternoon? We'd like to get your story on the evening news tonight." I glanced toward the kitchen where I could hear Zara opening prescription bottles. "Actually, could you come now? I think the timing might be perfect." "We can be there in 20 minutes. "Perfect. And Janet, bring a good camera crew. I want this to look professional." I hung up and walked to the kitchen, where Zara was leaning against the counter, dry swallowing pain pills. "Channel 7 News is coming here in 20 minutes, I said casually. "They want to interview me about your theft of my wedding fund." Zara's eyes went wide with panic. "Sage, no, please don't do this. Think about our family, our reputation. Think about Mom and Dad." "I am thinking about them. I'm thinking about how they've spent the last 24 hours telling me to apologize to you instead of demanding that you return my money." "If you do this interview, there's no going back," Zara said desperately. "Our relationship will be over forever." I looked at her standing there in her designer recovery wear, her face bruised from procedures paid for with my dreams, her eyes pleading for mercy she'd never shown me. "Our relationship ended the moment you decided my wedding fund belonged to you," I said. "The interview is just making it official." Zara tried a different approach. "What about Marcus? What about his family? They're going to see this and think you come from trash. You'll lose him over this."
The threat hit its mark because it voiced a fear I'd been carrying since yesterday. Marcus's family would see the news coverage, would witness the public spectacle of their future daughter-in-law's family drama, would question whether this was the kind of chaos they wanted associated with their name. But then I thought about Marcus's words from the night before, about not losing myself in the fight for justice. If his family couldn't understand why I'd fought back against theft and betrayal, if they'd judge me for refusing to be a victim, then maybe they weren't the kind of family I wanted to marry into anyway. That's Marcus's choice to make, I said, just like stealing my money was your choice. The news crew arrived exactly 20 minutes later. Janet Walsh was a polished woman in her 40s with the kind of authoritative presence that made you want to trust her with your story. Her cameraman and sound engineer moved through our small apartment with professional efficiency, setting up equipment and adjusting lighting. Zara had locked herself in her bedroom, but I could see her shadow moving back and forth behind the door. She was pacing, probably calling family members, probably trying to figure out how to control the narrative before it went live.
This is quite a story, Janet said as her crew finished their setup. Family financial abuse is more common than people realize, but victims rarely speak out publicly. What made you decide to share your experience? Because staying quiet protects the abusers and leaves the victims isolated, I said. I thought I was the only person dealing with something like this, but since I posted my story, dozens of people have reached out with similar experiences. Sisters stealing inheritance money, brothers emptying joint accounts, parents using their children's college funds for personal expenses. It's epidemic, and it's hidden because we're taught that family loyalty means accepting any behavior. Janet nodded approvingly. That's exactly the angle we want to explore, the broader pattern of family financial abuse and why victims don't report it. We did the interview in my living room, with the late morning light streaming through the windows creating a natural spotlight effect. Janet asked thoughtful questions about the timeline of Zara's theft, the discovery process, my family's reaction, and my decision to pursue legal action. But the most powerful moment came when she asked me what I wanted other victims to know. I want them to know that family doesn't mean accepting abuse, I said, looking directly into the camera. Blood doesn't give someone the right to steal your dreams, destroy your future, or manipulate your emotions. And staying quiet to protect an abuser's reputation just enables them to find more victims. What would you say to your sister if she was watching this interview? I paused, thinking about Zara behind her bedroom door, probably listening to every word. I'd say that I loved her, and I would have helped her if she'd asked, but stealing my wedding fund and then expecting me to pay for her remaining surgical costs crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Actions have consequences, and she's about to learn what those consequences look like. After the crew left, the apartment felt different, charged with possibility and finality. I'd crossed the point of no return, had made our private family business into public record. By 6 o'clock tonight, thousands of people would know Zara's name and face, would know exactly what she'd done. I felt powerful and terrified in equal measure. Zara emerged from her bedroom around 3 o'clock, moving even more carefully than before. She'd been crying, I could tell, but she'd also put on makeup and changed into a different outfit. She looked like someone preparing for battle. I talked to my lawyer, she said without preamble. You have a lawyer? Dad's friend Greg. He specializes in defamation cases. Zara sat down across from me, her posture as straight as her healing body would allow. He says what you're doing could be considered libel if any of your statements are false or misleading. I almost laughed. Which statements would those be? The part where you spent $47,000 of my wedding money on plastic surgery, or the part where you did it without telling me? The part where you're making me sound like a criminal when what I did was access a joint account that legally belongs to both of us. Zara, you stole my wedding fund. That's not my interpretation. That's a fact. It's your opinion, and according to Greg, opinions that damage someone's reputation and livelihood can be grounds for a lawsuit. The threat was hollow, and we both knew it. Truth was an absolute defense against defamation, and everything I'd said was verifiably accurate.
But the fact that she was threatening legal action showed how seriously she was taking the media attention. "Go ahead and sue me," I said. "It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in court when the judge reviews the bank records and the plastic surgery receipts." Zara's composure cracked slightly. "Why are you doing this to me? We're family. We're supposed to protect each other. I protected you for 28 years. I covered your rent when you were short, loaned you money for car repairs, let you live here rent-free for 2 years. I defended you to boyfriends who said you were selfish, to employers who said you were unreliable, to family members who said you were spoiled. I protected you right up until you decided my wedding fund was more important than my wedding." "I made a mistake," she said again, the same refrain she'd been repeating since yesterday. "People make mistakes. Families forgive mistakes. Stealing $47,000 isn't a mistake, it's a crime. And forgiveness doesn't mean accepting ongoing harm or enabling future theft." My phone buzzed with a text from Andrea Chen. "Demand letter sent by certified mail. Also saw the news promo for tonight's interview. Well done." I showed Zara the text. "My lawyer sent you a formal demand letter today. You have 30 days to respond with a payment plan or settlement offer. After that, we file a civil lawsuit." "I can't pay you back in 30 days, Zara protested. "You know I don't have that kind of money." "Then you should have thought about that before you spent it on plastic surgery." "So what do you want me to do? Sell my organs?" The suggestion was ridiculous, but it sparked an idea. "Actually, there might be something you can do." Zara looked hopeful for the first time since I'd confronted her. "The surgeon you owe $18,000 to, Dr. Richardson. What if you couldn't pay him either?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if your financial situation became so desperate that you had to declare bankruptcy? What happens to cosmetic surgery debt in bankruptcy?" Zara's face went pale. "I don't know. Why?" "Because if you can't pay him back, he might be willing to work with me instead. Maybe we could arrange for the debt to be transferred to me, and then I could negotiate a different kind of settlement." "What kind of settlement?" I smiled, feeling like a chess player who'd just seen the path to checkmate. "Reversal surgery. Dr. Richardson removes what he put in, restores you to your original state, and calls the debt even." The suggestion hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Zara stared at me as if I'd suggested she cut off her own limbs. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "I'm completely serious. You want to make this right? Prove it. Give up the body you bought with my stolen money." "Sage, no, please. I can't go back to the way I was. This surgery, it's changed everything for me. My confidence, my self-esteem, my whole sense of who I am. And planning my wedding changed everything for me. My confidence in my future, my sense of security, my whole sense of what family meant. But you took that away without hesitation." Zara started crying again, harder this time. "There has to be another way. I'll work 3 jobs, I'll sell everything I own, I'll move back in with Mom and Dad and give you every penny I make." "For how long? 5 years? 10 years? And what happens when you decide you've paid enough? When you get tired of living like a monk to pay for a crime you convinced yourself wasn't really a crime?" "I won't do that. I promise I won't. Your promises aren't worth much anymore, Zara." The evening news aired at 6 o'clock. I sat on the couch, watching myself tell the story of my sister's betrayal to thousands of viewers. Zara stayed in her room, but I could hear her television through the thin walls. She was watching too. The story was even more powerful on television than I'd expected. Janet Walsh had edited my responses skillfully, creating a narrative arc that moved from trust to betrayal to determination. The graphics showed the timeline of Zara's thefts, the total amount stolen, the impact on my wedding plans. But the most devastating part was when they showed Zara's social media photos from the last 6 months. Pictures of her at expensive restaurants, wearing designer clothes, carrying luxury handbags, all funded by money she was stealing from my wedding account. The visual evidence of her deception was overwhelming. My phone started ringing immediately after the story aired.
Friends from high school, coworkers from previous jobs, distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to express support, share similar stories, or offer help with my legal case. But the call that mattered most came from Marcus. "I just watched the interview," he said. "You were incredible, strong, articulate, principled. I'm proud of you." Even though I chose public confrontation over private resolution? Especially because you chose to fight rather than be a victim. My parents called too. They want to meet with us tomorrow. My stomach dropped. What did they say? That they're impressed by your strength and your refusal to accept financial abuse. They said anyone who could handle a situation like this with such grace and determination would be an asset to our family. I felt tears building in my eyes for the first time since this ordeal began. Not tears of sadness or anger, but tears of relief and validation. Really? Really? They also said that if you need help with legal fees or wedding costs, they'd be honored to contribute, not as charity, but as an investment in justice. After I hung up with Marcus, I knocked on Zara's bedroom door. "Go away," she called. "We need to talk about Dr. Richardson's debt. I'm not reversing my surgery. Find another solution." "There is no other solution, Zara. You don't have the money to pay me back, you don't have the income to make meaningful payments, and you don't have assets worth $47,000. Reversal surgery is the only way to make this right." "It's not making anything right, it's just making us both miserable." "I'm already miserable. My wedding is canceled, my savings are gone, my family has turned against me for refusing to enable your theft. Your being miserable too doesn't make things worse for me, it just makes things fair." Silence from behind the door. "I talked to Dr. Richardson this afternoon," I continued. "He's willing to discuss a debt transfer arrangement if you're genuinely unable to pay. And he's performed reversal surgeries before, though he prefers not to advertise that fact." More silence. "You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I'm filing the civil lawsuit and letting the courts sort out asset recovery." The door opened suddenly, and Zara stood there looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. "I hate you," she said quietly. "I know, but you hated me enough to steal my wedding fund too, so we're even. If I do this, if I agree to the reversal surgery, what happens to the rest of it? The legal case, the media attention, all of it?" I considered her question. "The legal case goes away. I'll issue a public statement saying we've reached a private settlement that addresses my concerns. Your debt to me gets resolved, and you get a second chance to build a life that doesn't depend on stolen money." And our relationship? That was the harder question. Could I ever trust her again? Could I ever look at her without remembering this betrayal? Could we ever be sisters again, or would we always be victim and perpetrator? "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday, but not anytime soon." Zara nodded slowly. "I need to think about it." 24 hours, I repeated. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed thinking about justice and revenge, about family and betrayal, about the person I'd become over the last 3 days. Was I proud of her? Was she someone I wanted to continue being? I thought about Marcus's question, about the difference between justice and revenge. Justice was about making myself whole again, ensuring this didn't happen to other people, creating consequences that matched the crime. Revenge was about causing maximum damage to the person who'd hurt me. Forcing Zara to reverse her surgery felt like something between the two. It would resolve her debt to me, but it would also destroy the confidence and self-image she'd paid for with my stolen money. It would make her face the consequences of her choices every time she looked in the mirror. Maybe that was exactly what she needed. The next morning, Zara emerged from her room at 10 o'clock with puffy eyes and a resignation letter addressed to her coffee shop manager. "I called Dr. Richardson," she said without looking at me. "I'm scheduled for reversal surgery next Thursday." I felt a complex mix of emotions: relief that the debt would be resolved, satisfaction that she would face real consequences, but also something that might have been guilt about forcing her to give up something that had clearly meant so much to her. "Are you sure?" I asked. She laughed bitterly. "No, I'm not sure, but I don't have any other choice, do I? Unless you've suddenly developed some compassion for your sister." "My compassion for my sister died when she stole my wedding fund." "Then we're both getting what we deserve," Zara said. "You get your money back, and I get to learn what it feels like to lose something precious." The reversal surgery took place the following Thursday at the same clinic where Zara had used my stolen money to transform herself. Dr. Richardson was professional, but clearly uncomfortable with the situation.
Performing reversal surgery so soon after the initial procedures carried additional risks, and he made sure both Zara and I understood the potential complications. But Zara had signed all the necessary waivers, had undergone the required psychological evaluation, had met with the anesthesiologist to discuss her medical history. Everything was legal, documented, consensual. I sat in the same waiting room where I'd discovered the receipt that had started this entire ordeal. This time, I wasn't there as a shocked sister discovering betrayal. I was there as a creditor collecting a debt in the most unusual way possible. The surgery took 4 hours. When Dr. Richardson emerged, he looked tired and somewhat disturbed. "Everything went well," he said. "No complications, no unexpected issues. She'll recover fully, though the emotional adjustment may take longer than the physical healing." "What about the debt?" "Resolved. The reversal surgery covers her outstanding balance to my practice, and I've prepared a debt satisfaction letter for your attorney." I thanked him and sat down to wait for Zara to wake up from anesthesia. When they finally let me see her, she looked exactly like she had before the first surgery, all traces of her transformation erased as if it had never happened. She was awake but groggy, staring at the ceiling with an expression I couldn't read. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Like myself again," she said quietly. "For better or worse." 3 months later, I married Marcus in a small ceremony at his family's estate. Not the wedding I'd originally planned, but something more intimate and meaningful. His parents had insisted on paying for everything, not as charity, but as a wedding gift, and I'd finally learned to accept help gracefully. Zara didn't attend. She'd moved back to our hometown, gotten a job at a different coffee shop, started therapy to deal with her body image issues and her relationship with money. We exchanged Christmas cards, but nothing more. My viral social media post had led to speaking engagements at financial literacy workshops and victim advocacy groups. I'd become an accidental expert on family financial abuse, helping other people recognize the warning signs and pursue justice when trust had been violated. The old sage might have felt guilty about destroying her sister's confidence and self-image, but the new sage understood that some lessons can only be learned through consequences, and some relationships can only be repaired after accountability has been established. I never got an apology from Zara, but I got something more valuable: the knowledge that I was strong enough to fight for myself, smart enough to seek justice, and brave enough to change the conversation about family loyalty and financial abuse. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.